Hello all, I'm Sai and you're watching The Book Dragon. In today's video, I'm bringing to you a video in which I talk about all the series which I read in 2021. For the convenience of this video, I'm just including all the series which I've either completed or read all the books which have been published until now. Personally, I can say that 2021 was a great year in terms of reading series for me because I ended up either catching up with or completing 13 series as a whole. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get into the books right away. The first series which I want to talk about is The Nevernight Chronicle by Kristoff. Now this is an adult grimdark fantasy trilogy and I highly suggest you to read this only if you're an adult because it is so dark and very explicit. If you like dark stories, I'm sure that this trilogy will be a treat for you because it was a treat for me and I enjoyed each and every moment of it. The three books in the series are Nevernight, God's Grave, and Dark Dawn. My most favorite of the three books is the second one, which is God's Grave, and each and every book in the series takes place in a different kind of setup. For example, the first book, Nevernight, happens in an assassin school, the second book, God's Grave, happens in a gladiator tournament, and the last and final book, Dark Dawn, happens predominantly in ships along with pirates. So as a whole, the setup of the series is great. The writing of the author is very weird and funny at the same time. The character work is just awesome, and each and everything about the series is perfection for me and I completely enjoyed it. The main character in this one, Mia Corberry, has easily become one of my all-time favorite main characters, and as a whole this was just a blast for me and I want to read Empire of the Vampire very soon this year itself. The next series is The Last Stars by Cassandra Clare. There are only two books of the series which are out until now, and the last book, which is Chain of Thorns, is to release in the November of this year, that is 2022. The first book in the series is Chain of Cold and the second book is Chain of Iron. I've read both of them. I read the first book, Chain of Cold, in January, and I read the second book, Chain of Iron, while it was released in March, and I can say that these books are super rich and super fun to read rather than anything. You can see that the books are so huge in size, but they just fly through. When you start reading the books, they don't feel like they'll take a lot of time to read because they are so much fun. Okay, the atmosphere in which these books take place is really great, and the setting of these books is Georgian London in the early 1900s, and it is so rich and lush. The character work is also pretty decent in this one. I'll not say that it is as good as it is in the Mortal Instruments and the Infernal Devices, but it is pretty decent. The romance is just as in any other Cassandra Clare series is great in this one also. The first book I'll not say that is that great because 15 main characters are introduced to us in the first book itself and we have to deal with them all, and the worst part is that all of them are related to each other, so that is a bit confusing. But when we move on to the second book, it is far better and you get a hold of all the relationships and the romances and the friendships, and it is completely awesome. I just want to read the final book in the series and I wanted to end it really well. The next series which I finished is a YA contemporary and it also has a lot of romance in it. It is the Lara Jean trilogy by Jenny Han. The first book in the series is To All the Boys I've Loved Before. The second one is P.S. I Still Love You, and the last and final book is Always and Forever Lara Jean. I can say that each and every one of these three books is super rich and very well written. All of them are such fluffy reads and they are also of super good quality. I'm sure that if you read this series and if you like YA, I'm sure you will fall in love with the writing style of the author as well as the setup in which the series actually takes place. Here we follow our main character, Lara Jean, who has written love letters for all the boys whom she has had a crush on for the past few years, and she has kept all of those love letters together secretly. But what happens is that someone leaks all these letters and posts them to all these different boys. Lara Jean has to deal with the consequences of the letters being read by the boys. It might sound like a romance alone while I tell the plot of the story, but as a whole this was really good. Especially the family of Lara Jean is the thing which I loved the most about this series, and also the friendships in this one are so cute. If you like reading YA books, this is a series which you need to read, and I was totally surprised to the extent to which I enjoyed reading the series. The next series in the list is His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman, and I've been wanting to read this series for quite a few years now, and finally I picked it up in 2021 and read it very slowly. Each and every one of these three books are super well written and they are very interesting compared to anything else. I'm actually watching the second season of the His Dark Materials show on Hotstar right now, and I should say that I'm completely enjoying it. That show is definitely a great example of how we readers want our books to be adapted into TV shows and movies, because they have not changed much from the books at all. They just follow the plot line of the book as such without boring us and presenting everything to us in the most beautiful and perfect way possible. I'm completely enjoying the show also. The three books in the series are Northern Lights or the Golden Compass, The Subtle Knife, and The Amber Spyglass. Personally, my favorite of all these three books is the second one, which is The Subtle Knife, because that is the book in which we see our second main character getting into the story, and the way in which the whole world itself explodes from there is super magical and very interesting to read. This series actually takes the concept of multiverse and works it out really well. The first book in the series actually takes place in a world which is not ours. The second book takes place in two worlds, of which one is our world and the other is a world which is not ours as well as not this. And the last and final book, we just follow different worlds during different times, and it is completely power packed and very fun to read. So as a whole, this was a super solid series, and I also want to read the sequel series to this one called the La Belle Sauvage. The first book of that series is called The Book of Dust, and I have that one along with me. So obviously I want to continue on reading in this world, and I completely enjoyed the writing of this author very much. The next series is The Eldest Curses by Cassandra Clare and Wesley Chu. There are only 2 books in the series that are out until now, and the last and final book is not out yet. It was supposed to release in 2021, but it did not. The first book in the series is The Red Scrolls of Magic, and the second one is The Lost Book of the White. Many people do not like this first book at all, but they love the second book. But personally, I loved this first book so much, and I did not care about the last chunk of the second book at all. The first 80% of the second book was awesome, but the last 20% was just a total suck up if you ask me. In this series, we follow Magnus Bane and Alec Lightfoot during different parts of their life after the end of City of Glass. The setup of this book was awesome, but it was not executed well towards the end. All the things about this book were really awesome because it taught me a lot of new things about the characters whom I have been following for various books until this point. This was a super fun series, and I am very much expecting to see how it's going to end towards the climax, and during which part of the entire series the last book is actually going to fall in. So yeah, I was a bit disappointed with the second book, but as a whole it was nice. The next series is actually a reread, and it is the Shadow and Bone trilogy or the Grisha trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. I actually went forward and read all the 3 books for the second time because the adaptation for this trilogy, Shadow and Bone, dropped in Netflix on April, and I wanted to have a fresher memory of the books before I watched the show. So I just went forward and reread all the 3 books within a span of 24 hours, and it was completely awesome. I did not forget a lot about the series, even though it has been almost 3 years since I read the books for the first time, but revisiting them and seeing all the things that were happening to the characters and being engrossed in this world itself was completely amazing for me. There are also some revelations which I noticed here since I know the entire story right now, except for Rule of Wolves. So yeah, as a whole, this reread was very enjoyable for me. The next one is an Indian young adult contemporary series, and it is The Boy Who Loved by Durjoy Datta. There are only 2 books that are out until now. The first one is The Boy Who Loved, and the second one is The Boy with a Broken Heart. A third book is supposed to release, but no one knows when it's going to release. But you can definitely read these 2 books itself because they are kind of companion novels. But you need to read this first book in order to completely appreciate the second one. In both these books, we follow totally different main characters, and we get the story narrated to us via their journal entries, and the way in which the author has written both these characters is super relatable in each and every sense if you ask me. Keep in mind that both of these books are sad and depressing at multiple instances, but as a whole they are really good to read. Especially I think the second book is far more hopeful than the first book because this is kind of a tragic tale, but this one is kind of a hopeful tale which is a continuation for this tragedy. If you like reading young adult books, you definitely need to try these 2 books because they are completely worth the time, and you can also just sit down and finish them in a single sitting. The next series is The Dark Artifices by Cassandra Clare. All the books in this series are so huge, and of these the first one is Lady Midnight, the second one is Lord of Shadows, and the last book is Queen of Air and Darkness, which is literally the biggest book which I read in 2021. This is easily the best Cassandra Clare series that I've read so far. It is definitely not my most favorite, but in terms of writing and the complexity and the sophistication itself, I can say that this series is the best so far. All the 3 books are huge in size and they will take quite a bit of time for you to read, but I can say that they are completely worth all the time. My most favorite of all these 3 books is the second one, which is Lord of Shadows, and it is also my most favorite book of 2021. You can see that it is very difficult for me to just hold them itself, but trust me, these books are completely fun packed rides throughout. They have a lot of trauma and mental health exploration that are also done by the author in all the 3 books, and also this is easily the most diverse of all the Shadowhunter series that I've read so far. The only drawback is that in order to read the Dark Artifices, you must have finished both the Mortal Instruments as well as the Infernal Devices, but I'm sure that completing both those series and then getting here is completely worth it. The next one is a YA mystery series, and it is the Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson. There's actually an original trilogy and then a standalone which happens after the end of the Truly Devious series. The 4 books are Truly Devious, The Vanishing Stair, The Hand on the Wall, and at last the standalone, which is The Box in the Woods. I can say that the best time to read the series is to read the trilogy during a very cold season and to read the standalone in a summer night, because the standalone happens during the summer season and all the other 3 books happen on the top of a hill inside the school called the Ellingham Academy, and it is very atmospheric rather than anything. The way in which the author has written is very beautiful. I enjoyed each and every single book in the series, and my most favorite of all the 4 books that are out until now is definitely the first book, which is Truly Devious. It just hooked me properly for the series and made me want to read all the 4 books continuously. And as a whole, this whole series was a good experience for me because I have not read many mysteries in the past. The next one is a young adult fantasy series, and it is the EMBER QUARTET by Sabaa Tahir. I actually started with the first book and I did not like the first 100 pages of the first book, but after that this series was completely great for me. I enjoyed each and every chunk of the story after that. The character work that the author has done with each and every one of the main characters in this one is simply out of the world, and also the plotting is super intricate and really well made. All the things that she talks about in the first 3 books make complete sense towards the ending of the last book. I'm sure that I'm going to read all the other books that Sabaa Tahir is going to release in the future also, especially All My Rage, which is going to release in the first quarter of this year. I also have a spoiler-free series review for this series, and if I have reviews for any of the other series that I'm talking about, all of them will be linked down in the description. Please do check them out if you're interested, because I'm sure that they'll be completely useful for you if you're expecting to get a lot more of my thoughts on the series. The next one is an Indian mythological fiction series, and it is also the most famous mythological fiction series in our country, which is the Shiva trilogy by Amish Tripathi. The first book in the series is The Immortals of Meluha, the second one is The Secret of the Nagas, and the last and final one is The Oath of the Vayuputras. I can say that I enjoyed the first book very much because it was very different from anything that I expected to read from that book, and the second book completely blew my mind because it was so much greater in scope and huger than the first book, and the twists and turns and the unexpected inside the second book were completely unpredictable for me. Especially the ending of the second book was super good compared to anything else from the first book, and the last and final book was a bit dropped down for me because I felt like the author just made the book bigger than it needs to be. It just felt like he was showing off using his writing style and just dragged the book for so long that I did not feel like I wanted to finish it at all. It took a lot of time for me to finish the last book, and I can say that it was not worth that much also. So as a whole, it was a very solid series, but I did not like the last book alone. The next series in this list is an adult high fantasy series, and it is none other than the Lord of the Rings trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm also including the Hobbit inside the series because I read them all continuously. I also did not read any of these books fast because I knew that if I read them fast, I'll not be able to enjoy them, as at the same time they'll not be easy to read if I keep on reading them fast. As a whole, I can say that my experience with this series is super fresh and very mystical. The amount of detail that Tolkien has given to each and everything about the series is just completely mind-boggling for me. I also watched the 3 Lord of the Rings movies after I finished each and every book, and I also have reviews for all the 4 books in the channel already. I'm going to continue on with the series and read all the other books inside the Middle-earth series also, especially the Silmarillion and the Unfinished Tales, and I also consider finishing the Lord of the Rings to be one of my accomplishments in terms of reading for 2021. The last and final series in this list is the only manga and the first manga that I've read so far, and it is Shaman King by Hiroyuki Takei. I read all 35 volumes of this manga in the last 4 to 5 months of 2021, and I can say that it was a complete fun ride. Okay, it is also a middle grade series, so it does not have that much of logic and technicality or complexity into it. We just go with the flow and enjoy all the things that are put into the series. It is very fun and very fast paced, and it is also super philosophical in nature. It is also available to read for free in Kindle Prime Reading and Kindle Unlimited, so try it if you're interested. So yes guys, those are all the 13 series which I either finished or caught up with in 2021, and don't forget to tell me the series that you read in 2021 in the comments below because I'd like to know them. And if you did enjoy watching today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. If you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.